So good afternoon. So this is the title of my presentation. It says From Sex to X and Back Again. And it's good that you read it, because the first time I pronounced it to someone, I said, you know, it's all about from sex to X and back again. This was to a lady who had just gotten a divorce, and she said, you know, I've been from sex to X, but I haven't been back again. So I'm still working on a new title, but for now this has to do. It's about the survival in the new normal. Now, I don't know if you guys already know the new normal that well. I don't know whether maybe you are from the old normal, so I'm going to do a small test with you, if that's okay. So my question is fairly simple. Who knows this object? Who's had one at home in the past? And who knows how to operate this? Come on, there's more hands here. Yeah. You guys are all old normal, you know. I can say that because so am I. And then every now and then, when you have this object of the old normal and you present it to people from the new normal, you get a clash. That's what happened in the video of these two 17-year-olds that were presented with a phone like this, and they had to dial a specific number within 4 minutes.
8, 7, then just fill it a little bit.
Maybe.
8.
That was 7.
Yeah, 7.
7? It's not correct,
Another
is it?
0.
Or do you go all the way around back here?
Dude, that makes sense.
Wait. Ah, yeah, we got it.
So they found out about the 0, but they didn't know what to do with the receiver.
Wait a minute.
Think of different.
Do we have to pick up the phone and then do it?
Put the phone to your ear. What do you hear? What does it sound like? Okay, that's a start.
Alright, watch out.
Incorrect. Correct for a 0.
What does the 0 sound like? What does the 0 sound like?
It just goes and ends it.
They did not make it in these 4 minutes. So we are living in this new normal these days, and this new normal means that we have moved from digital being a novelty to digital becoming the new norm. And it has led this guy, Mark Andreessen, one of the major venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. By the way, this guy's photo has not been photoshopped. He says software is eating the world. And what he means by that is that basically every company needs to become a software company in order to survive. And there's been 3 major waves already in the past that have led to this new normal. The first one, of course, being the PC in the 1980s, the internet in the 1990s, and then cloud, I think I heard that word before, since 2005. And we had to get used to this. So we had to get used to what this PC could do for us. We also had to get used to what the internet would mean from an information perspective for our youngsters. And we had to get used to the smartphone and how to use that while walking. And then just last year, execs were asked if there was going to be a significant industry disruption in the next 3 years. And about 26% of them said yes. And the same question was asked this year, and now 73% answered with yes. So there's going to be a significant industry disruption out there, and it's because of new technologies, new competition, but also because of higher expectations from the customers. So the C-level finds itself in this massive splits, because they know that you can't just let go of the old normal, you can't just stop what you're doing, but on the other hand, you know that something has got to change. You know that you need to start doing things differently, and so that's why this split is occurring. And there's basically 3 levels of innovation that you need to focus on as any company. It's about the now, it's about the next, and it's about innovating in the beyond. So that means if we look at the now, that you have to improve your current business model as much as possible. But the next is also focusing on new business models and maybe new target markets. In old school marketing, we would call this diversification. But then even more important is to imagine the beyond. Looking ahead like 20 years or so, and then try to picture the world there and what it means and what you have to do, start doing now in order to get there. You can't get there from here. You have to start thinking in the beyond first. And then we are faced with one terrible thing as humans. We don't like to change. We have a very big resistance to change. And even if we know that we need to change, it's tough. Now, let me take you through this formula, the formula of change by Gleicher. I didn't invent it, it's on the internet. He says in order to overcome this big resistance to change within any person, there's 3 things that you need. You need a compelling reason to change, you need a vision of the new future positive state, and you need to clearly define the first steps as well. And sometimes people come up to me and say there's one aspect missing, and I sometimes do agree, and that is the B for budget. So the compelling reason, of course, is that technology is there. It has changed companies and it has changed humans big time. And I think this is the most important for any company to realize. The human being has changed. And I would like to discuss with you the 5 I's of the new human being. We have become informed, individualistic, impatient, influenced, and intuitive. What does it all mean? So we've become informed because there's 4 billion of us, or even more, now connected through the internet. And if Google gets its Loon project on the way, there will be another billion more connected. And as soon as Amazon gets its Project Kuiper finished with more than 3,000 satellites in orbit around the Earth, all of us around the globe will be connected, more than 7 billion. And this being connected starts at a very, very young age. This is a letter of a 5-year-old to Santa Claus. Dear Santa, how are you? I'm good. Here's what I want for Christmas, and then a URL from Amazon. But we're also more mobile and mobilely connected. So more than 5 billion of us on a mobile phone. And this has changed us dramatically. I dare say, ladies and gentlemen, that these 3 have become the biggest fears of our generation. We are witnessing a new type of human being that the Germans refer to as zombies. We have all become smartphone zombies. And so cities are accommodating for that already. We have different walking lanes for people with a cell phone and people without. And in the Dutch city of Bodegraven, on the left, you have the pedestrian crossing light into the curb so the zombies don't inadvertently cross the street. And should they do, on the right-hand side, you have in-traffic technology for the driver to alert him that a zombie is crossing the road. So we have become very much connected. But because we are so informed, this also leads to the feeling that we sometimes have that we literally drown into this sea of information. And that's where companies need to make it simple for us as customers. Make it simple. That's one of the things that I really believe in. And my favorite example there is from Tokyo. It's a small bookshop called Morioka Shoten, and it's a single room selling copies of just a single book. So you walk into the store and you can only buy copies of one book. Now that is relieving the stress of choice, isn't it? They change the book every week, of course, otherwise they wouldn't have a business model, but it's making stuff simple. We've also become much more individualistic. Everything revolves around ourselves. We have literally put ourselves in the center of our very own universe. This guy's a dream if you're a speaker. And the biggest metaphor for this, of course, is the selfie. We create a selfie with ourselves in the center and with the celebrities or the disaster in the background. Now, some people still have difficulty creating a selfie. But the fact that we are so individualistic also leads to this, and this is tough for organizations. I am multiple me's. For example, just imagine if I'm booking travel as a private person, my needs and wishes are completely different than when I do so as a professional or as a business person. So that's another thing you have to take into account. Now, we've also become very, very impatient. We want everything and we want it now. And our span of attention has dramatically gone down. It was 12 seconds in the 1970s, and now our span of attention has gone down to 7.6 seconds, and we are officially beaten by the goldfish, whose span of attention is 8 seconds. Yes, we have become the swipe generation. It wasn't swiping, probably not so fast. So this is what we don't like. We don't like to stand in a queue, not at a hotel reception or not in a supermarket either. And that's why Amazon has come up with the Amazon Go concept. Has anybody heard of this concept? Okay, so you walk into a store, you get recognized through your phone, and then you can just take all the groceries in your bag, and then by the time you walk out, by the time you hit the curb, basically your account has been settled. And it is so intelligent that if you're doing your shopping together with someone else, and you're the one picking the stuff up, putting it in his or her bag, you're the one paying for it. You need to think about this, right? So the mantra here is do not steal time from your customers. They are so impatient. This is what you should never, ever be doing. And that we've become much more influenced. And that, of course, has to do with our being social and being on social media, more than 3 billion of us already. And that leads to people not believing companies anymore. They don't believe what is being said in ads, for example. We trust our peers much more than we do organizations. And so you have to realize that the traditional mass media campaigns will no longer have the same impact as they did up to now. But this being influenced is still changing as we speak. So we've moved from being influenced by other human beings to being influenced by mass media journalism and advertising. Now we're being influenced through people again, through our peers on mobile phones. But in the future, this will again be taken over, this time through the data collected, processed, and shared on our devices. And then the last piece here is that we have become much more intuitive. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, our brain consists of two pieces. We have our cognitive or rational piece, and we've got our intuitive or emotional piece of the brain. And you need to realize that every time I talk about emotional, people are looking at me like, well, I'm more of the rational type. Well, you may be justifying your decisions in a rational way, but you still make them using your emotional brain. And as an organization, you need to think about this. Your customers decide using their intuitive brain. And it's much faster, that brain. That's what Daniel Kahneman describes in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And so when I talked about being drowned into the sea of information, our minds are so full that we revert to our emotional brain much more often than we used to. So these 5 I's you need to take into account. Basically, your customer base looks like this. We have become what is called in English the murmuration. It's like this flight of starlings. It's continuously moving and there is no leader there. And it's also completely unpredictable in which way they are moving. Yet, you need to keep up with them, with your customers. So we live in this VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And in this world, one thing is crucial, and that is speed. You need to innovate, and you need to do it fast. And so it's all about the rate of change, and this rate of change is immense at this moment in time. There's several thought leaders talking about that. And next to being fast, you also need to be agile. And no matter how much I hate buzzwords like this, it's true. Agility is crucial in this new normal. Your strategy can no longer be rigid and, built in concrete over the next 3 to 5 years. Your strategy needs to become fluid. You need to be able to accommodate for this changing customer that's flying in this flight of starlings. Now, what if we look at the disruptors that are out there? What can we learn from those? Now, one thing they do very, very well is that they don't start with the product. In everything they do, they start with the customer. Like Jeff Bezos says, we are customer obsessed. We start from the customer and then we work our way backwards. It's crucial. It's not just some nice saying on the wall, it's a strategy. The other thing they do very well is that they make the most use of emerging technologies that are out there. And then the third thing is that they move away from mere products to becoming platforms. And our friend of NextWorks, Jeremiah Owayang, in Silicon Valley, has created this collaborative economy honeycomb. And what you see there is a number of categories where you have these platform companies. So just a number of examples. You've got ride-hailing. Everybody's talking about Uber, but Didi's much bigger globally. You've got space. So liquid space, for example, is the Airbnb for office space. We're talking about learning, several platforms there to enable this lifelong learning journey that we're all on these days. And we have, for example, in the category of goods, we've got custom made, which is a platform where you can find someone who can really design or manufacture something specifically to your personal needs. And then finally, in the money space, we have the Lending Club. And this is from their website, and it really shows very nicely that they are in between investors and borrowers. And so what they have basically done is this. They have cut out the middleman. This is what platform economy does. It cuts out the middleman. And now, of course, I realize that this is typically an audience that might suffer from this same thing, being cut out as the middleman. So what do you need to do in order to overcome that? I think there's a number of things that we could refer to here. First of all, it's about value add. Of course, you need to have value add from distributors to partners in services, but certainly also in relationships. Next, it's about becoming the curator of information, becoming the knowledge broker, so to speak. Make life simple for your customers, who are the partners. Become the knowledge broker. And then next, of course, become the cloud broker as well. I don't need to elaborate on that point anymore after all has been said. And then finally, it's also becoming part of an ecosystem or building an ecosystem. And I will later on be followed by a speaker, I think at the end of the day, John Walters from NextGen. And I know that if we're talking ecosystem, I think it's a beautiful example that you showed me where you build completely new business model by adding a platform to your portfolio. So those are the things that I think as a middleman you could be taking. Now, if we're talking ecosystems and we're talking platforms, I think there's a major distinction there. So if we're talking Amazon, that is purely a platform, a huge platform built on control. Amazon does everything. It wants to own the whole supply chain because they have the motto, whatever we do ourselves, we do better. On the other side is Alibaba, which in my view is much more of an ecosystem. What Alibaba says is we help small businesses grow and we grow together. And so Jack Ma compares Amazon to an empire and refers to Alibaba much more as an ecosystem. And if you look at the data there, Amazon has a closed data system. They keep most of it to themselves, or everything, I should say, whereas Alibaba opens up much more to provide the businesses on their platform, on their ecosystem, I should say, with these data. And they are also very low on assets. And I love this, what Jack Ma was saying to Walmart. If you want to add 10,000 new customers, this is what you need, and all I need is 2 servers. That's the difference. Another typical example from China, for example, we were visiting during one of our innovation tours with Didi. So they are looking to expand their ecosystem as well. They're moving into new spaces. They're becoming a fintech giant, providing loans and insurances to their customers. And they're going after the competition with Alipay, WePay, and of course the banks and insurers. And so what we see happening in China, in my view, is that we see much more of ecosystems versus industry, much more focused on customer needs, much more focused on the red ocean compared to the blue ocean. Red ocean focuses on existing customers instead of looking for niches. Much more focused on scale, action, and implementation. To sum it all up, they think less and they do more. And that's, I think, something we could learn from in the West. Now, every time I talk about speed, people ask me, Nancy, how much time do we have? Well, if you look at the disruptors and the new companies, they all start with an idea, of course. Then they are looking for a product market fit, then they are looking for a scalable model, and then in the end, they are looking to scale their business, and their revenue grows exponentially. And what's the time for an incumbent to innovate is basically the time it takes for the startup to start scaling their business. That's the only time frame that you have. And then still people tell me, well, we've got a lot of time still. Because if you look in this rear mirror, they're far behind anyway. But I would say, if you look closely at these rear mirrors, this is sometimes the message that you can find, that objects may be closer than they appear. And I think this is very true at this moment in time. So in this battle for the customer at this day and age, which is fiercely going on, customer experience comes first. Everything is about customer experience. Now, what is it? I would like to give you one definition. It is the customer's perception of his interaction with any part of the organization. And that is very important. It's about any part, not just the customer-facing selling guys and girls, but any part of the organization. And it influences their behavior, and it builds memories. And it's only when you can build memories with your customers, positive memories that is, that you will create loyalty. And so all of these interactions are referred to as touch points, and all of them matter. And the customer's perception, basically, is your reality. You have to deal with this. There are companies out there that have more than 200 touch points with their customers. So it's time to analyze those, review those, and start improving where possible. But every time you do this, you need to do this with the customer in mind. And now for some companies, it may be a huge shock, but the customer is a human being. And the customer has emotions and acts highly irrationally. You have to deal with this. So 50% of the customer experience involves these emotions. Some will even say up to 95%. And so if you think about customer experience and new experiences, most companies will ask the customers. They will say, let's do a survey. Let's find out what they really want. But the fact that we are so irrational, that we are intuitive versus rational, means that what we say is not always what we really think. And that happened to Disney. They asked their visitors to their theme parks, what would you like us to serve for lunch? And the visitors answered, we would like fresh juices and smoothies and salads. And what did they order? They ordered soft drinks and hot dogs and hamburgers. People will say that they will buy eco-friendly products, but in the end, they will mostly go for the cheapest alternative, whatever it is. So a survey won't do. So what you have to do, and this is of course where you need to gather a lot of data, is actually look at the customer behavior. You need to carefully watch what they do. That's what you need to do as a company. And if you do that, of course, you will gather these big data. And as been said before, I can go through this a bit more quickly, the big data will eventually fuel artificial intelligence, which is, of course, the next wave that started back in 2015. Now, for a short interactive moment, I would like you to take your mobile phone, because I have a question for you. And it goes like this. What is the current status of your AI strategy? It's on the radar, but no action planned. It's in medium or long-term planning. You're actively experimenting, or you have already invested and deployed. Okay. So I can fairly safely say that most of you are in the first two phases. You're either you're rapidly switching, right? It's not good for my story, so I will just switch to the next slide. The CEO of eBay framed it like this: if you don't have an AI strategy now, you're going to die in the world that's coming. Mind you, I think there's still time, but not that much. So this is something that you need to carefully start thinking about. Now, we've talked about data being the new oil, data being the gold, and this guy from Gartner says, well, data is cheap and data is dumb. So the value of a company will not be determined by the data it owns, it will be determined by the algorithms it can come up with to turn these data into actions, into actionable insights. Algorithms will be the most important thing over the coming years. And we, as individuals, are already being influenced by algorithms big time. And of course, Cambridge Analytica, on the right-hand side, tried to influence voting only at the beginning of last year. So there's numerous algorithms out there that we know as consumers that influence us, and they will be crucial in the years to come in business as well. And then every time I talk about this, and probably not for such a technology audience as this time, but most of the time when I speak about this, people will tell me, we already do this. We've got analytics. But analytics is not the same as algorithms. Analytics, of course, will provide you with insights, but these insights will be about the past, in the best case about the present. But algorithms will give you predictions on how it's going to evolve. And of course, if you know what the customer is going to do, the insights you have gained through analytics will help you to decide what steps to take. As being said, you know, AI is already everywhere in sales, marketing, service, forecasting, diagnostics, and so on. And you also have it in predictive maintenance, where machines don't have to break, but they will alert you themselves. Hi guys, please come and provide maintenance to me because I'm going to break down in 10 days, for example. So in this cycle, you have more. If you have more data, you will have smarter algorithms, better products and services, happier customers, more sales, and then again more data. So this is AI's virtuous cycle, and this is something that every company should be starting to pay attention to. It's all about monetizing the data. Data, as being said by the former speaker, is becoming crucial. Yet, if we look at the reports by McKinsey, only as little as 1% of industrial data is being used today. So there's massive opportunity out there. And then after talking about data and AI, of course, this question arises, and it, of course, stands for what is the future? So I think what's going to be important and what is powered by AI, of course, is this. The home device will be the iPhone of the next decade. If we already look at how voice is being used, of course, much more in the East compared to the West, basically because they skipped the entire internet age. But this will be strong. Some people even predict that there will be 50% voice as an interface by the end of next year. Now imagine what this does to your search. Suppose you want to be found as a company. If that happens on a desktop, you have to be in the top 10. If that happens on a mobile phone, you have to be in the top 3. But if you ask a home device, you get one answer in return. And yet I challenge you, have you been thinking about this? Most companies haven't. And again, if we look at these home devices, we see a clash between old and new normal. This is a new normal device. When presented to someone from the old normal, again, you see a clash. A nice video from an Italian lady presented with a Google Home device for the very first time. And mind you, how she pronounces the word Google. It's hilarious.
Hey or okay?
That's something from the alphabets.
You have to say hey Google or okay.
Hey Google. Okay Google.
What's the weather? Yeah.
What's the weather, ask?
What the weather? You wanna know what is the weather?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
In Flagler Beach tomorrow, there will be showers with a high of 65 and a low of 56.
With
Watch it, man.
I'm scared. I'm scared. It's a mystery. Oh my gosh. No.
So there's going to be this big shift of trust from basically the brands to the home devices, that will act as gatekeepers for all of these AI platforms. And we need to think about that. And some people say, well, it's going to be a long time before it's there. But if we draw the line and compare it to the evolution of smartphones, they're already outpacing those. So there is big opportunity there. And the question that every single company asked themselves 10 years ago, should we build a mobile app, now has become, should we build a voice app? And of course the answer is yes. Another major new technology is of course brain-computer interfaces, where you can actually make an object move one way or the other just by merely thinking about it. Of course, also virtual reality. And again, we have some clashes with old and new normal there. And then, of course, augmented reality, and there we see opportunities not only in the cosmetics world, maybe less relevant for most of you in this audience, but of course, Amazon also has its AR view, where you can actually try out new furniture in the augmented reality of your own home. So there's huge opportunities there in this future, and all technologies are powered by AI. Now, I talked about these 5 characteristics of the human being, remember? And that means because all these 5 are so dominant these days that the customer expects this from you. Extreme transparency, personalization, convenience, and speed. The customer expects this from any company. And it does not matter if you are in B2C or if you are in B2B. Because this is about dealing with humans. Business has become human to human, and this is what is being expected. We move from information to technology. It's all about transparency. Transparency in how data is being stored, but also transparency in how data is being used. And I love this one. He says, Dad says you're spying us online, and he says he's not your dad. And of course, one of the major technologies providing this transparency and creating trust is, of course, the blockchain. But as with any emerging technology, people are still trying to figure out what this blockchain actually means. But that it will create trust is one thing that's for sure. One thing that we have to know and to realize is that the level that we are on in blockchain technology can be compared, if you look at the internet technology, to the protocol layer, the TCP/IP. And so there's network and presentation, network application presentation layers over there. Those still have to be found for blockchain, and it's evolving continuously. And then, of course, transparency in pricing. I think that is crucial. And I think that is something that in this industry might need some improvement now and then. And then about personalization, we move from the mass to the individual. And we see that happening in any industry, in any sector. This is happening. Customers want things personalized. We are looking at personalized shoes, we are looking at personalized food. Based on the data of your wearable, you are presented with a suggestion for food so that this will improve your performance even more. You have personalized or precision medicine in healthcare, because not everybody is suited for the same dose of a certain pill. And you have precision or personalized marketing. Now, Seku is one of the companies I visited with in China. And so what they are doing is not only collecting the purchase data of all their customers. By the way, they have a platform selling premium brands. What they do is they can also combine this with, because they are on the Tencent platform, with the social data of these customers, the videos they use, the TV shows they watch, and all their demographic data as well. And that is something that we are missing in the West because we don't have this single platform that combines everything. And so if we think about personalization, the value there is gained through being relevant, being timely, and being very trustworthy as a company. And then in return, the customer is willing to provide you with a piece of personal information and is willing to put effort in this. But mind you, this is a ratio. So if it takes too much effort and too much information to give from the customer, they will not see the value of this personalization. After transparency and personalization, it's also about convenience. And convenience will be the new loyalty in the years to come. And so you have to think about ways to augment this convenience. And yes, this has to do with speed, so it needs to be fast. But fast is also an acronym for these 4 things. So first of all, it needs to be frictionless. That's what Uber did. They took out the friction of ordering for a taxi and of paying for it. Mobile payment makes payment frictionless. It also makes it a necessity for a beggar in China, because if he doesn't have a QR code to enable mobile payment, he won't get any money. And if you think about this technology in the business that you're in, it's about moving from the complexity of license models to the ease of APIs. And that's basically what Rapid API is doing. There's now an API for everything. So where you have Google to search for information and Amazon to search for product, you have Rapid API to search for any API out there. It's also about accessibility. Now, Zappos.com in the United States has really gotten this right. By the way, this is, does anybody know Zappos? It's like the Zalando of the US. They have become an Amazon company, by the way, but they still have their own identity. They have their phone number on any single page of their website. I challenge you, if it's on yours, on every page of your website. And they are available 24/7, and they have a toll-free number. Very accessible. Accessibility also has to do with the interface. If this is the interface, it's not accessible, at least not in my view. So you need to make the interface easy as well. It's also about providing a subscription model. And of course, cloud license models will enable you to do that. But there's more that you can do on platforms and subscriptions. You have subscriptions for everything now. You have it for diapers, for razor blades, you have it for home appliances, and IKEA is even turning into a subscription model for furniture. And then finally, it's also about technology. Not for technology's sake, but to make things easier. So that's what Amazon did with the Amazon Dash button. You glue it onto your washing machine. If you notice that you're almost out of detergent, you press the button once. I mean, how easy does the interface get? And 3 hours later, the detergent will be delivered to your doorstep. Domino's made it even simpler. You don't have to click anything. You just open the app, and then you wait for 10 seconds. And if you don't do anything within 10 seconds, your order for your favorite pizza has been placed, and it will be delivered within 30 minutes. That's convenience. So this is something to take away. Make it simple. Make life simple for your customer. But it's also about speed, of course. Speed of delivery, speed of delivering products, and speed of delivering services. If you make it too much effort for a customer to get your product, to get service, to get in touch with you, only 4% is likely to continue to be your customer. And then, of course, I talked about convenience, speed, effort. But one thing we should not forget is about fun. It needs to be pleasant. A customer experience needs to be pleasant. And so like the one on the right-hand side, that is turning negative feedback into something positive. Come in and try the worst salad one woman on TripAdvisor ever had in her life. And then the top left, I took underneath my hotel bed. And then I got the question, what I'm doing underneath my hotel bed. Let's not get into that one. The thing here to get is that value for the customer consists not only of money value, but it equally consists of the effort that he has to put in there and of the emotion of the experience. And these 3 need to be balanced, which means as a company, you need to move away from making people want your things to making things people want. The customer expects extreme transparency, personalization, convenience, and speed. And then people ask me, is it going to pay off? This whole sex thing. And I can finally say yes. There's been a report that has been published last year by the Temkin Group. And I've done the math on this, so you don't have to calculate yourself. On average, companies will have 21% more revenue year over year with a moderate improvement in customer experience. Now, that's a metric that invites you to do this, doesn't it? So, 3 levels of innovation, now, next and beyond, and of course, the customer should be in every single one of them. Because, and I'm sorry if there's CEOs in the audience, and I know there is only one boss, after all, and that is the customer. If he stops buying from you, you're going to be out of business. And then people ask me, okay, Nancy, you talk about technology and you talk about this customer experience, but with reference to this technology, is then everything going to digitize? Is nothing going to be relevant for us anymore? Well, a lot of it is going to digitize, but not everything. Just watch.
Emma.
Not anymore.
Emma.
Every day it's getting on my nerves.
Emma.
Oh, I'm
Emma.
begging you,
Emma.
So it's not going to be man versus the machine, it's going to be man with the machine. We're going to move from AI, from artificial intelligence to IA, intelligence amplification. We are going to be smarter as humans because of AI. We will be able to service our customers much better. So there needs to be a transformation for any company, not just on the digital acts, but also on the human acts. There needs to be a human transformation as well. Already 90% of businesses claim they are competing on CX, on customer experience. And in my view, EX, employee experience, is next. And that, of course, starts with culture. Now, what is culture all about? Culture is about attitudes and actions. It's what people believe in and how they act upon that, their behavior and their decision. It's not written down anywhere what a culture is. I love the one on the top left. Culture is what people do when no one is looking. Now, to transform a culture is probably the most difficult thing that any company might go through. It takes years, in fact, to do that. But you have to realize that what you promise from a brand perspective to your customers has to be aligned to what you do internally with your employees. There needs to be a blend of these two, and that's where you have real sex coming. Now, there's a couple of myths around culture. So people think that it's just the responsibility of HR, which is not. It's all about parties and perks. They're lovely, but it's not what culture is about. It's not something that grows organically. No, you have to keep on working every single day, and you cannot impose this on people. It's working hard. Culture starts with your purpose, your why. Why are you in business? And it needs to be the same for your business internally as it is to your brand. So if companies say that they want to deliver products and services in innovative and cost-effective ways to create shareholder values, they cannot say, on the other hand, to their customers that they want to be seen as a safe and trustworthy company. The two need to match to be believed. And then you also have the how, which is reflected in your values, which, by the way, should not be something like written on posters hung up on the walls, but it should be something that is lived through by every single employee within the organization. And that takes leadership. Culture needs to be led. It doesn't just happen. And so that was what really was wrong with Volkswagen. The cheating did not take place by a low-level engineer. No, it went all the way up to the board. And so there was something very wrong within this culture. So if you lead culture as a leader in your organization, it's about these three things. You have to speak about it consistently. You have to listen very well, and it says connected listening or 3D listening. That means that you really pay attention to what the other person is saying, how the other person is saying it, and also to what the person is not saying. And then Gardner showed by some research that a lot of leaders are doing the talk, but a lot less are actually walking the talk. So there's a big challenge for leaders out there. And then, of course, you need to design your organization, and you need to design your organization. People always ask me for best practices. The design of another organization will not maybe work for yours. You have to figure that out yourself. At Google, of course, they have the 7 rule, where they have to have at least 7 direct reports so as to avoid micromanagement. But then in Southwest Airlines, which is another strong company on values, they have a very high manager versus employee ratio. So you have to figure that out for yourself. The thing to get here is that I think companies should move away from traditional hierarchies where information moves slowly and where you have a very strong command and control type of culture to becoming a much more responsive network where information can travel fast and where it's all about enabling and coaching. So you need to improve the employee experience through a number of things that you can do. And if you do that, you will get the employee that's enabled, empowered, energized, and engaged. Because research has shown by Gallup that worldwide, 87% of employees are disengaged or actively disengaged. So not engaged or actively disengaged. That is amazing. And it's research done just a couple of months ago. And just like sex pays, X pays as well. So it pays being considered a great place to work, but it also pays if you look at revenues and profits. So you need to actually marry these two because they will impact the engagement. And for me, it's more or less like this infinity loop. If you have good employee experience, you will have engaged employees. They will provide a very good customer experience, and you will have engaged customers. And this loop goes on and on forever. So, to conclude, if you want to survive in the new normal, you need a new strategy. And this is the thing that you need to do, which is the most difficult, and that's unlearn a lot of what you've learned. If you don't unlearn, and if you still hang on to these old mantras, you may start looking ridiculous, like this lady does. If you show this to a 15-year-old, they don't get the joke. So you need to dare to have the guts to get rid of your old mantras, of your mental models. And you need to take a big leap every now and then, because after all, the electric light did not come from the continuous improvement of candles either. And so that means some strategic shifts. It's about daring to experiment and about daring to take risks. And experiments can be negative every once in a while. So you need to take that into account. You need to dare to take risks, and that's something that we suffer from in the West, is the fear of failure. But if you look to Thomas Edison, he says, I have never failed. I've just found a large number of ways that don't work. It's a different mindset that we all need. If you think about innovation, this is the life cycle of a company. Most companies I talk to, especially the ones in finance, you know, they wait until they're in the decline before they start thinking about innovating. What you should actually do is, while you're still growing, take on to the next level. And do that time and time again, and that will create a new trajectory for growth, and that will enable you to lengthen the life cycle of your company. It takes both will and skill within any company. Will to not be dismissive of emerging trends, and skill to recognize those and act accordingly. And in this, and I wish you very a lucky adventure in this, or a very successful adventure, you have to think in opportunities all the time. As I said, it's the now, the next, and the beyond. And in all three, there's one thing crucial, and that is this. You need to be delivering a wow experience to your employees and to your customers. And I would like to end with a lovely quote by Maya Angelou, and it goes like this. I've learned that people will forget what you said or what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I thank you very much for listening. Thank you.